With Fantasy Labs, and I wanted to make a quick video on how I'm attacking tournaments by being contrarian for this MLB April 20th 11 game slate. I wanted to start off this video by discussing the benefits of being contrarian in MLB DFS specifically. For those that don't know, a contrarian lineup is basically a lineup that has plays that oppose mainstream plays. There are several specific ways to be contrarian, but I want to talk more about the process of being contrarian and why you absolutely need to utilize it as a strategy. So a simple way to put it is, for contrarian purposes, use zig when everybody else zags. Since DFS always has inefficient pricing, we can always find an edge. This is very true in cash games, which I utilize a lot, finding an edge with inefficient pricing for cash games, but for tournaments we can use that for different purposes. This edge can be tinkered with depending on if you're playing cash or tournament. For this video, I will be talking relative to tournaments. So when playing DFS, I think there are several factors that can kind of increase or decrease pricing. For tournaments, though, it's arguably more important to look at how the crowd can potentially overreact to these pricing changes in the short term, and that's more important than it is to analyze the pricing itself. And this is a great example of how savvy DFS players profit. And a big thing with contrarian players and mass entering guys, a lot of people attack these players who throw multiple entries in tournaments. And I haven't personally met a lot of these guys, but I can say that these are the extremely savvy DFS players. I will also say that they have some of the best minds in DFS. The reason they have the best minds, in my opinion, is that they think differently, and I can't stress this enough throughout this video. Thinking differently, for me, is the most valuable skill one can have in DFS when attacking tournaments. When applied, with all of the information and data that you can obtain, which we definitely, of course, have at Fantasy Labs, that is, in my opinion, what makes you a successful DFS player. If you kind of look at guys like Bales, Max Dollery, Ray of Hope, Beat by Majib, Draft Cheat, E. Hafner, The Clone, Ganondorf, B. Calicor, McJester, so many other guys who have had great success in tournaments. And I think a lot of their success can be credited to having an ability to think differently. So we get a lot of haters that think they can do what these guys do if they have max entries in every tournament. And Beat by Majib probably just says they hate us because they ain't us every day. But the problem is most people look at information on the surface and don't think differently. They don't spend enough time thinking differently. So most people are focusing on basic stats, making multiple lineups without really having a strategy going in. All of these guys I mentioned above are always one step ahead of everybody. They spend more time analyzing the market than analyzing the data. The beauty of being contrarian is that oftentimes you don't need to know something that the market doesn't know. You just need to kind of think about it differently in different terms. So this is where the advantage is, and with MLB DFS especially, this is where the profits are. So now with that out of the way, let's apply some of this thinking to tonight's slate. I'll start out, head to Fantasy Labs, and I'm going to be looking over the Bales 2016 model because when playing tournaments, who doesn't want to learn from a master in tournaments? So this is where you view all of the data that we've supplied for you, so you're not really wasting your time collecting various statistics in order to see who is good value on any given slate. We kind of have that all highlighted for you. So I strongly suggest heading to our lineups page as well. This is where you can kind of highlight some contrarian stacks, look at lineups that have a lot of platoon players, for example, look at low implied team run totals, for example, kind of capitalize on decreased ownership of these teams. You can look at pitchers who are potentially in stronger situations than their price and expected ownership indicate. A simplified way to be contrarian is to kind of identify which teams have the most favorable Vegas data, as in they are heavy favorites, or for hitters, high implied team totals, as well as identifying players who are performing well recently, because this is what the public puts a lot of emphasis in when constructing lineups. So kind of going through all these teams and looking at lineups and whatnot and factoring in everything, a stack I like targeting today is the Nationals. With Bryce Harper facing a lefty and carrying an astronomical price tag, I think we'll see his ownership heavily decreased. If we go to our player models, we can view Harper's stats for this slate and see that he has a minus 0.102 ISO differential versus lefties, which is bad, but I'm more focused on ownership and kind of what the market will be doing. We can also look at the advanced stats of Wei-Yin Chen and see that his average fastball, if we scroll over here, okay, so we can see his average fastball in the past 15 days is minus 1.9 miles per hour. So kind of with a modest implied team total of 4 runs for Nationals, I'm kind of looking at these players at a discount while also kind of maintaining that upside. So let's go ahead and generate multiple lineups for the Nationals. And when doing this, we'll go to the right here, generate multiple lineups. And we'll choose a team and add the Nationals, which are right here. Okay, and let's go ahead and avoid opposing pitcher, and we can go ahead and just generate 10 lineups here. Oh, let's clear that, and let's do 4 player count. Okay, so as you can kind of see through these lineups, we have Bumgarner, who is the chalkiest pitcher of the day in all of the lineups, which is fine because we're getting a bit contrarian by stacking, the Nationals, and you can see we have 0 Bryce Harper, which is it's most likely due to his price tag and him not showing up too high in these ratings. So with a chalky pitcher and kind of mixed exposure to the Nationals, let's go ahead and save these lineups, and we can go back and we can lock in the 1 through 4 hitters to get some Bryce Harper exposure. So let's go back and let's go to the filter and do just the Nationals, and we'll lock in the 1 through 4, which is Michael Taylor, Anthony Rendon, Bryce Harper, and Ryan Zimmerman. And now let's go to generate multiple lineups. And we'll go ahead and make 20 lineups using the Nationals 1 through 4 hitters. And then just like NBA, similar, I have the feed. It's not as poppin' as NBA was, but still to just kind of get an idea of what's going on throughout the day. New lineups that are still coming in. Most of them are already in because I procrastinated on this video, so it's pretty late. So let's go ahead. Now we got our exposure 100% to the 1 through 4 hitters, and let's go ahead and save these lineups. As you can see, we have different pitching on here. It's not all Bumgarner because he's obviously expensive and it's hard to get him and Bryce Harper in the same lineup. So let's go ahead and save these 20 lineups. Alright, now we got those out of the way. Let's stack a few teams now. Going through, kind of looking on this slate, I think the Mets are kind of an obvious stack because they're implied to score a healthy amount of runs. So I'm going to make a few Mets stacks. And the other team I like stacking a bit here is the Tigers, facing Ian Kennedy due to his extremely high home run rate. So I like targeting him. So let's go ahead to the pitchers, and to kind of get a bit more contrarian with that Mets stack, especially, having probably decently high ownership, I'm going to go ahead and set Bumgarner's ownership to 0, and I'm going to set Kennedy's to 0 as well because I'm stacking against him. So let's go and generate multiple lineups. And I should 0 out Hellickson as well. Okay, generate multiple lineups, and let's choose, let's go ahead and choose the Mets as one team, and we'll do 4, and let's go ahead and choose the Tigers as the other team and do 4 as well. Okay, and let's go ahead and generate 20 of these lineups as well. So I like to definitely utilize the lineups page when kind of thinking on a macro and micro level of which teams to target. Definitely looking at the implied run total. You can see, 4.5 runs for the Rangers. You can definitely expect pretty high ownership out of these guys. You can expect low ownership out of the Tigers, which is one of the teams I'm stacking, which I think there's value based on the upside facing a home run prone pitcher and the low ownership as well. So that's kind of how you can lap the field if the Tigers do score a lot of runs here. All right, so we got these lineups 20 generated. Let's go ahead and save these. And then, okay, now those are saved. Let's go back one more time for one last batch of lineups. So let's go ahead and clear our exposures. Oh, there we go. Okay. So kind of taking it to pitchers, a way to get contrarian. A pitcher, I think, who is going to have really low ownership, who I kind of like on this slate, is Jimmy Nelson, facing the Twins, who strike out a lot. I'm going to go ahead and lock him in. And then a team I highlighted looking at the lineups page in the Rangers implied at 4.5 runs. I think they'll carry high ownership, a lot of 1 through 4 stacks, a lot of 2 through 5 on FanDuel, of course. And then, so I'm going to get a piece of them, but I am going to just get exposure to the lefties, which I think will be a kind of contrarian way to get exposure to the Rangers in a lot of people do the typical 1 through 4 stack. So I want to decrease ownership having those 4 as my guys on that team. So let's go ahead and go to the filter and go to the Rangers. Alright, and batters, and we'll go ahead and lock in the 4 lefties. So it'll be Mazzara, Prince Fielder, Mitch Moreland, and then my boy Rugi, Rougned Odor. So we'll lock them in, and let's generate 20 lineups with this Rangers stack with Jimmy Nelson. And we can avoid opposing pitcher here. Alright, so we can save these lineups to our My Lineups page like the others, and let's just make sure there's a tournament on FanDuel still available. We can do the squeeze as one. That'll be fine. Alright, so we got all our lineups saved. Let's go to the My Lineups page and go to FanDuel for this slate. And let's go ahead and export. So we got 70 lineups. We got a few stacks in here, a few different pitchers that I set different exposures to. So let's export these and go to FanDuel to put them in the tournament, the squeeze. I'm going to squeeze all the money out of this tournament. What is this even? What do we got here? 10K. Okay. That could pay off my food bill for next month. Candy bill, I should say, rather. Alright, so you just go down here and you do upload lineups from CSV. Very, very simple. Choose file. And it should be right here. Open. Upload. Enter 70 lineups. Still have 19 minutes before this starts, which is pretty solid. So there's plenty of time to put more entries in if you want. But I recommend not really waiting last minute. I think you should definitely have your strategy laid out going in, kind of make some lineups. Of course, we still have some lineups out there that aren't set yet. We got some of the late West Coast games, I believe. Looks like we got them all in actually. Oh, that's nice. Usually there's 1 or 2 stragglers, but all right. So we got I think that worked. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, so we got our main slate. All our lineups are in. Everything's looking good. Don't have to worry about any late scratches really, which is always nice. So This video, these are just kind of some examples when I made these lineups to be contrarian. Kind of instead of taking into account who I'm exactly playing tonight, focus on why I'm looking at these plays and why doing this is so important in GPPs. All the tourney goats don't just randomly throw in 500 lineups a night. They take time analyzing everything, and then they take calculated risks with high exposure to certain core groups to kind of make all their lineups. So these calculated risks are obviously high risk, high reward, which is why very successful tourney players usually have higher ROIs than most successful cash game players. So there are a lot of ways to be contrarian, so many different types of strategies to explore. I kind of encourage you guys to challenge your way of thinking. I think that's the bottom line here. I recommend testing out some contrarian lineups on shorter slates first. It's a bit easier. It can be overwhelming on some of these larger slates. I definitely recommend starting with low buy-ins because the variance and inherent risks of contrarian lineups mean you're not going to win all the time. So um, high returns are very highly correlated with unique contrarian lineups utilized at opportunistic times. This is what we want to look for when making contrarian lineups. So I think to be successful in GPPs, you got to spend more time than you do right now on kind of analyzing the market or crowd. So this is my advice for some large field tournaments using Fantasy Labs to kind of incorporate all the data, and then you got to have your own personal strategies of ways to think differently and get a bit contrarian. So thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, hit me up on Twitter at DoppelSykes to ask any questions, or if you just want to talk shop.